Welcome back to this episode of the Shooting Bricks podcast. And guys, it was a great night, obviously. But before we get into all of that, as always, I'm Jared Castillo, and I'm joined by.
Good morning, y'all. It's Daniel Wynn. Unfortunately, Relly Rel could not join us, but we just want to say we miss him. We miss you, Jarrell.
Yeah, whatever you may be doing, we miss you. But in spirit, it's your boy Relly Grell, Jarrell Sales. And Daniel, what a game! What a game four! That was it. I think that was the closest game we've had these playoffs, right?
That was possibly the most intense game we've had yet in this series. It was both teams were practically even throughout. I would say that Golden State's flaws, maybe because I was rooting for them, but they stuck out more to me. But it was incredible what happened in practically in the last minutes of the fourth quarter. That's when the game completely flipped on Golden State's head.
Right. And speaking of the fourth quarter, let's start with that. The job that Curry did in the fourth quarter shouldn't be understated. He willed his team to win. He was that guy. He was Michael Jordan for a quarter. And we don't talk about it. People don't talk about it enough. The fact that he scored basically 10 points in the last 9 minutes. That's insane. Like he wasn't getting any contributions. Obviously, Klay Thompson pitched in with 8, but throughout the game, it was on him. But in the fourth quarter, he shined. What about that game or that quarter, I guess, stood out too, at least in terms of Curry, the Warriors, Klay Thompson, whatever?
The freaky thing is at the start of the fourth quarter, I thought the Warriors were going to lose. They came off at the start of the quarter. They what the hell was going on? They were frenetic. They were sloppy with the ball. They were increasingly turnover prone. It was just bad basketball. It was a mistake by Steve Kerr personally to leave him out at the start of the quarter. As you remember, Curry didn't come in until 9 or 8 minutes left in it. So what Curry did in the fourth quarter, especially particularly in the last 5 minutes, was NBA Finals MVP worthy. That was just that was when Curry finally hangs up his sneakers in his locker room. That is one of those performances we're going to talk about some of the most defining moments of his career. That was legendary stuff. What happened last night, and with about a minute to go, that 3-pointer to put them up by 6 with a hand in his face, that's potentially an iconic shot. It's an iconic shot.
Yeah, just like how Kyrie had his game 7 shot. If the Warriors win this series, that could be Steph's. It's weird to say Steph's Kyrie moment, but that's what it feels like because
he was in this. Curry was in the same spot as Kyrie, similar spot when he
when he hit that shot that sank the Warriors.
Yes.
Anyways, not belaboring on the past. Let's talk about the present. And Curry finished with 43, shooting 14 of 26 from the field and 17 of 14 from 3. That is something that we just won't see. And Curry, I was reading the stat on StatMuse or something like that. And Curry joins LeBron and MJ as the oldest players with 40 points in a finals game. And he's the only player in finals history to have 40 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 assists. He's the first player to do that. So I don't think he's just something else. A lot of people are bagging on him for being who he is, but we should just accept that this is Curry and enjoy him while we can, because he's going to be playing for 6 more years. And then after that, we're going to see a generational talent, Hall of Famer, go into the record books, and that's it. We'll never see anyone like him.
I mean, I have my personal gripes with Stephen Curry. But I cannot deny the fact that he's a phenomenal player, and what we just witnessed last night, that was traditional greatness as a whole. So as fans, we should appreciate it because we don't know what happens next. We don't know what player comes afterwards. For all we know, we could be missing the 3-point ball in 10 years, wishing we can revert back to this current style. So as fans, we should be grateful for what we're seeing. And basically, Stephen Curry knew that the Warriors had to win last night, because if they didn't, the series practically is over in 6. Boston wins the series in 6. But now with the Warriors winning, there's a good chance now that the Warriors are going to win this in 6 or 7.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to go a step further. If the Celtics would have won last night, it would have been a game. It would have been 5, done.
Hmm.
Because if the Warriors didn't play the way that they played, they would have been so demoralized heading back to the San Francisco. Like, yes, it is San Francisco, but this was your best shot to basically win. And if they came out flat and lost, I think this would have been done at 5, quite honestly.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm glad that they won, obviously. But yeah, go ahead.
It I kind of get why you said that. I said this series would have been over in 6 because that Boston crowd was palpable. If you watch that game, the intensity. Like Warriors fans are pretty good fans, but like they are not intense like those Celtics fans. What we saw in games 3 and 4. Like that
Right.
Celtics fans, that fan base was completely involved last night.
You're right. And speaking of getting involved, what do you think about Andrew Wiggins? Because he had 17 points and 16 rebounds, a lot of those coming off the offensive end, which was just it was like a different animal watching him, right? Because the first few games of the series, he looked, sometimes he'll be on, then sometimes he'll be off. And we discussed this that sometimes he'll be like 40%, other times he'll be 100%, and then he'll find that weird middle ground of about 60 and just kind of stay there. But it seemed like to last night he was basically everywhere. Like I said, 16 boards, and I think that's his career high. And he's the first player he's the second player I think. No, wait, scratch that. He's the first player since Giannis to have 15 points and plus 15 rebounds. That's crazy. I mean, for Andrew Wiggins, I don't think we've ever thought about considering Andrew Wiggins and Giannis being in the same pantheon of accomplishments, but here we are, I guess. So, thoughts on Andrew Wiggins, thoughts on Klay Thompson, or the Warriors as a whole?
Practically, Andrew Wiggins was the second most important player last night. The rebounds don't they don't really surprise me. What really struck out to me was the Warriors. Obviously, again, they were struggling from a rebounding point throughout the whole game, but it was until the fourth quarter, all of a sudden, Andrew Wiggins keeps them alive in this game. The amount of offensive rebounds I counted on my hand was incredible. He was literally getting all these missed shots and just finding ways to tip them in. Like it's because of him, Stephen Curry. It kind of helped him. Curry just launch off. Andrew Wiggins had a pivotal moment last night. He kept the Warriors alive when they desperately needed the most.
Right. Yeah. The Warriors out rebounded the Celtics 55-42. So it goes to show you that rebounding does actually mean things. The Warriors outscored the Celtics in second chance points 19-12. Points in the paint, which has been a talking factor throughout the series. Warriors won 38-32. And I'm just curious. I don't know if you were privy to the fact that in certain possessions in the fourth quarter, Steve Kerr would switch out Draymond for an offensive player, and then when it's defensive player, a dead ball, he's switching back in. I think it happened with Otto Porter, and then it happened with Jordan Poole, and then that's just kind of how his rotation is in the fourth quarter because we know Draymond at this point, he's a liability on offense. At least he can give you something on defense, but on offense, he's a no-go. So what did you think about that?
As a coach, knowing how Draymond is struggling, and practically, in my opinion, he was pretty useless last night. That was one of the that was the skunk of the Warriors.
Yeah.
And looking back, so if from a coaching perspective, that was honestly the smartest move because of course he would do that. If you know a player is struggling offensively and in a game in a high pressure situation like this, you're going to do whatever it takes is to win, no matter how crazy it seems. So what Steve Kerr did was kind of hectic, but it was completely understandable. So I don't blame Kerr for anything he did.
Right. And I honestly would agree with you because you have two games, you have at least 2 games left and at most 3 games. Just try whatever works. And I think for this situation, it worked because Draymond, according to StatMuse, he has more fouls than points. He has 18 fouls and 17 points. So what can you do at this point, right? Just try anything.
Honestly, there were a couple of moments when Draymond shot the ball. I was like, I couldn't really do anything but cringe because I knew it wasn't going in. That there was one 3-pointer he attempted around near halftime. Is like, oh fuck, he's that's gonna miss. It's like
It's a
you just know. It's like this is bad.
He's shooting bricks, man. He's shooting bricks. But 2 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 fouls, 4 steals, I guess, and 2 turnovers. So typical Draymond Green line, but it is what it is. Thankfully, his presence wasn't completely detrimental to the Warriors. But what about the Boston Celtics? Because Jason Tatum, he had 23, Jaylen Brown had 21, Marcus Smart had 18, and Derek White with 16 off the bench. Thoughts on them?
Derek White is probably one of the more underrated players on this Boston team. Overall, the Celtics did not play bad. What happened last night in the fourth quarter honestly came down to just experience. You could tell they're them being a young team kind of, we kind of saw that in full motion last night. That's what honestly happened. Other than that, Boston played the best they could. It's just you just got to do better in the last 5 minutes of the game. That's just what happened. Jaylen Brown coming off a huge game 3 performance. What the Warriors did right was they slowed him down in the first quarter, and that's right. They did. Good on them. But Jaylen Brown had a nice game, but he could have been more consistent, especially in the first quarter. Jason Tatum, like all the pundits have been saying, if the Celtics are going to win the series, he needs that signature game. And honestly, he's had good performances, but there's no signature game yet, and that needs to happen.
I think it's weird to say, but his signature game was game 1 when he had all those assists. And we know Jason Tatum as a scorer. We never known him as a facilitator. And I think that's, looking at it objectively, that needs to flip. He needs to be a scorer. Like if Curry can go off for 43, Jason Tatum can easily go off for 35. I'm not saying it should happen this series. I'm just saying it should happen in the future. That's what we expect from Jason Tatum, and we don't expect 3 points in the fourth quarter from a guy like him.
You see, I don't know if game 1 was that signature game, but I get why you're saying that. It's just when I say signature game, like we need like a 45, 50 point like game performance. Like we saw from Stephen Curry. We need clutch shots. And in my opinion, that honestly hasn't exactly happened yet. So until it happens in my eye test, like I can't give it to him. So I mean, the thing is, there's still, and at least in my opinion, there's still 3 games left. So like Jason Tatum can still give us that signature game we've been hunting for.
Right. And as great as Jaylen Brown is, there's no way that he should be out shooting Jason Tatum, especially in the fourth quarter. Like no offense to Jaylen Brown, but that's just my 2 cents.
Jaylen Brown is the second option for a reason, and Jason Tatum's he's the face of the franchise. So if anyone should be taking the load, it's him. Tatum should be the one scoring all the crucial points in the second half, because once again, he's the face of this Boston franchise. And Jaylen Brown's meant to be Robin. So let him be Robin.
Do you think that it's maybe Jason Tatum kind of shying away from the pressure a little bit, because the biggest stage of them all, and then he's kind of like, I wouldn't say wilting, but it looks like he's more passive, especially in the fourth quarter. He's deferring more to the others when it's his time to shine. Do you think that's kind of like something going on?
I absolutely think it's just an experience thing. Remember, Jason Tatum is what? He's barely in his mid-20s, and this is his first NBA finals ever. Like Michael Jordan didn't even make his first finals until he was like 29. So like the pressure NBA players, since they're coming in so young these days, is immense. And like it's just not realistic to expect this, like the performances we need from a guy this young, right? And you got to remember, LeBron is kind of the exception. And even in his first finals appearance, he crumbled against, a very much vastly more experienced Spurs team. So we're kind of seeing the same situation here. So it's not surprising that he is acting more passive here. I think, if anything, he kind of seems a little bit rattled by all the pressure and the attention that's like surrounding him.
Yeah. And it's also good to note that for all the things that the Celtics haven't done in the fourth quarter, at least in this game, you got to give props to the Warriors defense, because they held them to 33% shooting from the field, almost 31% from 3. And they just like you said, the experience. They just knew, like, okay, this is our time. We were down 2-1 in 2015 against the Cavaliers. We've done this before. It'll be fine. And I think that's something that really, played to their strengths. And, you talk about experience, and we know the experience of the third quarter. So again, the third quarter is the Warriors' quarter, but anything stand out to you?
It was a very typical Warriors third quarter. What kind of stood out to me, well, it was kind of a close game, was that even though the Warriors, I'm going to give props to the Boston Celtics here. Even though the Warriors clearly stepped it up, the Boston Celtics clearly did not seem rattled by the third quarter. It's kind of, again, I'm giving props to Ime Udoka. I think he's one of the best coaches in the game as of this moment. Is that Boston's, they stay cool and they stay calm and collected, and they hung in there. So by the time the fourth quarter came, the game was still very much anyone else's to lose.
Yeah, because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but like going into the third quarter, I think it was like Warriors lead by 3 or something, like fewer than 3 points, right?
Mm-hmm. It was the lead it didn't really cross the 5-point mark until around the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. And that's when I kind of noticed Boston kind of emotionally waved the white flag.
Yeah. And, Ime Udoka, he's obviously, this is the biggest stage, and this is the most important game. So it makes sense that he's only rolling out 8 players, excuse me. And while the Warriors, they're rolling out 9, right? Andre Iguodala didn't even play last night. And Nemanja Bjelica, he had some solid moments, to be honest. Like, yeah, he looked lost, but in terms of just being a pest, I think that works, because I think it was either Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, one of the two. He actually got a steal off of that. And as a Warrior fan, you don't expect it much from Nemanja Bjelica on the defensive end, because he makes his money on the 3. But that's still a good sign that if you are throwing some name out there, like I personally would have chosen Kuminga or, Juan Toscano Anderson to just be that defensive presence. But, Nemanja Bjelica, that's still a good choice. I don't know if anything stood out to you about that, or just he's just another dude on the wall.
I mean, that didn't strike out to me that much, but what did strike out to me from a small point was Kayvon Looney. Kayvon Looney found a way to keep. He's been the only positive for the Warriors in the paint so far, and he found a way to, along with Wiggins, to keep the Warriors in the game. So that props to him on that.
Right, and just anything else before we wrap things up?
What a game last night! Honestly, it's just. I think the Warriors are going to come back rejuvenated back at home. I think they're going to, if anything, I see a 10 to 15 point victory on Monday night. So I think the Warriors are going to go up 3-2, but I think Boston's going to return to favor when they win in Boston for Game 6. So we're going to Game 7. We're going to Game 7, but I think the Warriors are going to prevail.
Right. All right. Well, I'm going to say the Warriors win the next 2, and then the series will be over. But really quickly, shout out to the Warriors for winning a road game in 27 consecutive winning a road game in 27 consecutive playoff series. What a mouthful. And Curry, Dre, Klay have tied the Spurs' big 3 for the most NBA Finals victories with 19. But with all that being said, make sure to subscribe to the Shooting Bricks podcast and leave a review on your platform of choice. It really helps us out. Lastly, make sure to follow us on @PodcastBricks on Twitter, @Shooting Bricks Podcast on Instagram, and @The Shooting Bricks Podcast on YouTube for all the news and the video of this episode of the Shooting Bricks Podcast. And as always, I'm Jarrod Castillo.
I'm Daniel Nguyen, and everyone have a great weekend.
And somewhere in the world, it's your boy, Relly Rel, Jarrell Sales. And we will see you guys next time.